So in chapter 9, Scout gets in a fight at school. The fight is about her dad and what he is doing. And the kid at school says that her daddy is defending niggers. And Scout gets really offended, but she doesn't really understand what that even means. She just says, like, it sounded bad, so it must have been bad, so I beat him up. So, page 75, Atticus sighs. I'm simply defending a Negro. His name's Tom Robinson. He lives in that little settlement beyond the town's dump. He's a member of Calpurnia's church, and Cal knows his family well. She says they're clean living folks. Scout, you aren't old enough to understand some things yet, but there's been some high talk around town to the effect that I shouldn't do much about defending this man. It's a peculiar case. It won't come to trial until summer session. John Taylor was kind enough to give us postponement. If you shouldn't be defending him, then why are you doing it? For a number of reasons, said Atticus. The main one is, if I didn't, I couldn't hold my head up in town. I couldn't represent the county in the legislature. I couldn't even tell you and Jem not to do something again. You mean, if you didn't defend that man, Jem and me wouldn't have to mind you anymore? That's about right. Why? Because I could never ask you to mind me again. Scout, simply by the nature of the work, every lawyer gets at least one case in his lifetime that affects him personally. This one's mine, I guess. You might hear some ugly talk about it at school, but do one thing for me if you will. You just hold your head high and keep those fists down. No matter what anybody says to you, don't you let 'em get your goat. Try fighting with your head for a change. It's a good one, even if it does resist learning. Atticus, are we going to win it? No, honey. Then why? Simply because we were licked 100 years before we started, there's no reason for us not to try to win, Atticus said. So this is the first time we hear about Tom Robinson. And I think it's fascinating that when Scout asks him, are we going to win? He says flatly, no. No hesitation in the way he responds. It's just he knows what's going to happen. So does that mean he's not going to work hard? I mean, why is he giving up so easily? Atticus doesn't seem like the kind of man who would just give up in a challenge. So that's the introduction to Tom Robinson. It's a fascinating little interchange between Atticus and Scout. All right. So the rest of the chapter is Christmas. They go to Finch's Landing. They get air rifles, which is pretty fun. They can shoot at things. So we get a lot of the kind of the history of the Finch family. So let's see here. We get some perspective from Uncle Jack and how he interacts with the kids. And then we get to the end here, page 88. Atticus and his brother, his younger brother, Uncle Jack, are talking. The kids are in bed. Let's see here. Is that this part? No, they're not in bed. Yeah, let's see here. So, yeah, the kids are in bed, and Atticus and Uncle Jack are talking. And on page 88, Atticus says, what bothers me is that she and Jem will have to absorb some ugly things pretty soon. I'm not worried about Jem keeping his head, but Scout just as soon jump on someone and look at him jump on someone as look at him if her pride's at all at stake. And then Jack says, Atticus, how bad is this thing going to be? You haven't had too much of a chance to discuss it. It couldn't be worse, Jack. The only thing we've got is a black man's word against the Yules. The evidence boils down to you did, I didn't. The jury couldn't possibly be expected to take Tom Robinson's word against the Yules. Are you acquainted with the Yules? Uncle Jack said yes, he remembered them. He described them, and Atticus said, no, you're a generation off, but they're the same, though. What are you going to do then? Before I'm through, I intend to jar the jury a bit. I think we have a reasonable chance on appeal, though. I really can't tell at this stage, Jack. You know, I'd hoped to get through life without a case of this kind, but John Taylor pointed at me and said, you're it. Let this cup pass from you, eh? Right. But do you think I could face my children otherwise? You know what's going to happen as well as I do, Jack. And I hope and pray I can get Jem and Scout through it without bitterness, and most of all without catching Maycomb's usual disease. Why reasonable people go stark raving mad when anything involving a Negro comes up is something I don't pretend to understand. I just hope that Jem and Scout come to me for their answers instead of listening to the town. I hope they trust me enough. Jean Louise, go to bed. All right, so such an important chapter when it comes to the introduction of this Tom Robinson case. Remember, we're talking about Scout's innocence. She's his child. She doesn't understand the intricacies of the world. Atticus is such a good man, well respected, and yet he's clearly got this tension that's struggling in his soul of like, I know I'm going to lose this case, but the only thing I can do is do the right thing, which is defend Tom Robinson. He says it is a loose situation. It's Tom Robinson, a black man, versus Bob Ewell, a white man. There's no other evidence. I didn't do it. You did it. And then the jury, they're going to be a bunch of white people. And the social, cultural expectation is that, of course, the black man is guilty because he's black. And then I love this, the very bottom, page 88. He says he hopes Jem and Scout don't catch the usual disease. Well, what would the usual disease be? What's he talking about? Look at the context. There's no actual disease. It's not a cold. It's not a sickness. So what would the usual disease of Macomb County be? All right. And then I love the very last line there, page 89, is that Scout later on, many years down the road, she realizes Atticus wanted her to hear all of that. He was speaking knowing she was hiding in the hallway, letting her hear this, because as a father, he is trying to teach her and raise her to do right and be good. And he is basically saying this world has some serious, serious problems. How are we going to deal with these? How do we raise children in a racist society and hope that they grow up to be good, decent people? So you see his struggles as a father. Super good. I've gone a little bit longer than I should have. So read the chapter. It's really good. Till next time.